Let's get started.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to come. I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you here. So let's start. Get your questions ready. So the first thing, let's just start with your background, right? We talked about building one of the largest pharmaceutical chains across Nigeria, which is no easy feat, especially at the time when she started it, which was 1993, right? So just tell us a little bit about your background. How does somebody get to a point of building such a large organization in Nigeria? Tell us about you, your background, and how you now came to starting Medplus.
Okay, so my background. I grew up in Ibadan, and I think that kind of. I'm not a Lagos girl. I'm an Ibadan girl. So there's a bit of like a humble kind of approach to life and background. I went to the University of Ife. I studied pharmacy. After pharmacy, pharmacy is 4 years. After pharmacy, you have to do your internship. I did that also in Ibadan, in a teaching hospital. And then my youth corps, I came to Lagos, and I was at military hospital in Lagos. And then I went abroad for 2 years. I kind of jackpot at the time. And I tried to get the license. I got the license in the US, but it took like 2.5 years. Is this mic okay? You're hearing me right?
You can hear her, right?
Okay, so it took me 2.5 years. I had to do internship. I first of all worked in Estee Lauder in assembly line. No, I have to backtrack a bit. So I actually finished at age 19. I was very young when I finished. Ife, my son, he would ask me, Mommy, did you understand anything in the university when you graduated? At that time, age wasn't a factor. They weren't too fussy, as long as you passed. So I finished, did the internship, did youth corps, and then my dad died. Now, I always forget this part. People always have to remind that, okay, that was some big factor for you. For a young girl from school, I was the first to actually finish in my family. I'm the second born of a family of 5. So I had all these big plans with my dad. He even wanted to send me to Harvard for masters, blah, 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 all of those good things. And then, everything just shut down. And that's when I started thinking of going abroad. I didn't have any plans of leaving Nigeria. I'm a very big believer in Nigeria. But at that time when all that happened, I just thought, young girl, how will I survive? So I went abroad. I did all the licenses. I did all the exams. I did my internship. I did some jobs, cleaning jobs, all those kinds of things. And then I got the license. When I got the license was when I left the US. I didn't even work with the license. Came back to Nigeria at that time, got married, had my 2 kids, Bekwa and Ife. Bekwa is 32 now. He's at Goldman Sachs. Ife works in the business. Ife went to MIT. So had the 2 little boys. And then I used to go to First Consultants. You guys wouldn't know that hospital. It was the in-hospital at the time. So I'll take them there for follow-ups and whatever they needed to do. And on my way there, I would see this tiny pharmacy in Obalinde with loads of state-of-the-art cars. And I never understood, what are all these cars doing in this part of town? Right there and then, I knew they would be coming from Ikoyi and VI. At that time in 93, there were no chain stores. There was JK Pharmacy, who is one of my mentors. There was Medville in Ikeja. So I would go in, see loads, almost like queues of people. So at that point, I knew there would be an opportunity to set up something in VI. I wasn't still sure, how I was going to do it. So the opportunity for a store came on Adiola Odeku. In fact, at that time, it was very expensive. It was 200,000, I remember it. 200,000 in 1993. I don't know if it's 20 million or I don't even know how to calculate, but at that time, it was a lot of money. So I ran to one of my mentors and said, you know what, I found this store, it's in Victoria Island, it's this amount of money. Uncle, what do you think? You know, he was a pharmacist, he had like one store at the time in Ikeja. So he said to me, Joke, if you don't go and pay for that store now, I am going to pay for it. So just go ahead and get the store. So I went ahead, you know, blind investment, just got the store. And then now money for the stock, because we had used all the money to pay for rent. So I started off with like 600 pounds. You know, we kind of got money from friends and family. And to really fill the stores, I remember I used to use empty packets. You know what they call display material. And I know at that time my husband will come in and say, he'll try to pick something from and see it's empty. And he'll be like, why are you putting empty cartons on the shelf? And I'm like, no, that's display. Don't touch my display. It's display material. So I started local. I used to go to this same pharmacy in Opalindi. I will go and buy from them, put it on the store, go back and forth. I'll just add a little bit of margins on top, not more than maybe 10, 15%. And I will see that instantly I will sell out. So I knew, okay, there's something going on in here. With time, you know, I got credit, not immediately. I got credit from, you know, suppliers. And that's just how Medplus started.
And so it sounds like the catalyst, though, was something happening to your dad, right? So in terms of your journey. So can you maybe share a little bit about that? Because I think for many people, it's kind of human nature, right? The urgency comes when something big happens in your life, and all of a sudden it kind of clicks on what you need to now do or focus on or your purpose. So can you share a little bit about what happened to Dad? And then my next question is just about, in you building at the time you were building, I mean, many of us know the issue of counterfeit drugs and really, honestly, herbal medicine, especially in Nigeria. And so what you were facing at that time in 1993 in terms of trust, in terms of changing customer perception when you started to build. So what was sort of that impetus with Dad? And then how did you now channel that energy into what was a seemingly difficult environment, herbal medicine kind of being the thing, and then counterfeit drugs also?
All right. You have to repeat the second question later, but I'll start with Dad.
Okay.
So in university at the time, in my class, there were at least like 6 people that already had, that their parents were already established in the business. Now listen carefully at this point. So I always kind of had maybe an inferiority complex, I would say. That, my God, these ones, they already have something. All they have to do is graduate and they step into the business. So when my father now died, that compounded the inferiority complex. I don't know what's the worst term for when you know, you're really complex. Imposter syndrome, just that insecure feeling and all of that, you know. And so I even though I had the inferiority complex, I still wanted to, I had this little thing where I would always wanted to do everything extra. So in school, I wasn't the best in class. I had a tutu. There were more brilliant people. I was quiet. I mean, I passed. I like my books, but I would have to read, you know, to pass. I'm not one of those that just, you know, go to class and do the exams. You will not even know that I have the capacity to do what I'm doing now. So I think that my dad dying gave me that insecure thing. So I would always, you know, look for the opportunity, and I was ready to take the risk because, hey, you know, I have nothing to lose anyway, you know. So that was what that did to me. Now you want the, what's the other one?
So how
Trust?
did you now channel that energy? Because even if you have that catalyst in you, there's still a reality about the environment that you're operating within. Right? So at that time, what was the environment that you were now building this business in? So I mentioned a couple: counterfeit drugs, right? Herbal medicine, people looking at traditional medicine, traditional doctors being the way. So how did you now take that energy, right, of Dad passing and now channel that into building this business? And what was the environment like that you were building in?
Okay. So, yeah, you're right. At the time, there was a lot of, the trust equity wasn't as high with pharmacists. Now, even this Lumaco that was in Obalende was just run by, they weren't really pharmacists. The owner wasn't a pharmacist, although his drugs were good, but he himself didn't give any extra advice. You know, they were just like traders, they just sold drugs. So I knew I had a bit of an advantage. Being a pharmacist myself, I was going to be in the store, I'll provide pharmaceutical care, I'll counsel, talk to patients and all that. So that was the value I knew I could add, you know. So when I opened, you know, I used to go to work in jeans, I'll be there myself. I had a technician to support. I couldn't even hire too much staff. It was me, 2 technicians, like sales girl, but we call them technicians, pharmacy technicians, and then we had a security. It was on Adiola Odeku, where KFC is now. That was where Medplus started. We're on the ground floor there. And when we started, we sold strictly medicines, meaning no toiletries, no cosmetics, no household, you know, no food, nothing, just medicines. You know, it was a proper pharmacy. And then with time, people would come in, ask for this, ask for that. As they were asking, we'll write it down, very manual. Now, another thing that, and I know, you know, at some point I was in LBS for an MBA. I didn't really look at all the problems. You know, when you go for an MBA, there's this course, analysis of business problems, where they tell you all the problems, everything that can go wrong with a business. I think me going into it blindly kind of also helped me. I was aware of what was in the environment, but I didn't need to answer every single problem. And I even said up to today that I'm happy I had started Medplus before going into LBS. Because by the time we finished in LBS, it was just I and Mitchell Elegbe, InterSwitch.
Wow.
You know, we had both started at the time. You know, I think we were really the only ones that,
Made it.
yes, kind of. Please, I hope nobody's hearing this. I hope nobody in my class is hearing this.
Yeah.
I mean, they would change jobs, they got better jobs and all of that. But you don't have to know all the problems. You don't have to tick everything right. You know, I know the professors don't like to, you know, they don't like this. They want you to have an answer, you know, to everything. But at that time, there was a blind spot. It was a pay as you go. So when we get there, we figure it out. When we get there, we figure out. We knew some things, but it wasn't, you know, very formal. And so I was a pharmacist. I was a young girl. I was in my 20s. I was actually like 26 at the time. So people would come in. I didn't even advertise because we really couldn't advertise at the time. Pharmacy is a professional course. You know, you can support initiatives and, you know, you can give back to community, but you can't really go out there and say, you know, you're a good pharmacy or you're the best pharmacy. So I think the word of mouth really went very fast. It went very, very fast. And you know, we didn't even set off to say, okay, we're going to own 140-something stores. I didn't even think that was possible, you know. At the time, customers will come in and say, oh my God, we're coming from Abuja.
This mic again, guys.
Is it the way I'm holding it?
I don't think so.
It's from there, okay. We're coming from Port Harcourt. Can you please, can you open something? Can you open something closer? Okay. Can you open something closer to where we are? You know, the distance is too long, you know. So we really, at that early stage, we listened to customers. Most of what customers told us, we wrote it down, and we tried to take it into context, you know. So from day one, it wasn't as if we said, oh yeah, branches, where are we going to open? I was quite happy with the one store, but consumer demand and just paying attention to what your customers want. And some of those things even included widening up the range of what we carried. Customers want convenience. So, I mean, they wanted us to sell anything sellable, you know, eggs, oil, they would ask for everything, phone cards, phones, you know, whatever it is, you know. And we learned a lot from COVID. I'll get to that later. When COVID now finally came, there were some things we just had to say no to. So that was the start. the environment at the time. That's how it was. The value add was me being a pharmacist, me being there all the time. And then very quickly, I also learned that I couldn't run the business around myself too much. So, and then we started to expand very slowly, very slowly. Medplus is 32 years old today.
Wow.
And thank you. Ife would tell me, how can you run a business for 32 years? I would have sold it, I would have done series ABC, I would have whatever. I didn't even know you could even sell a business. I didn't know you could sell part of a business. So many things I'll get to later. So that was the start.
So, I mean, a big part of that, and we talk about this with our founders, is around understanding your customer, right? Understanding the insights, understanding what it is that they need. Can you talk a little bit about how you balanced your customer needs, right, with what actually made sense for your business to drive to 140 stores in that 30 years? Because you listened, right, but you also had to be balanced in expanding your business, because not everything your customer says you go and do. So can you just talk a little bit about that, the strategic decision-making element? So you said it's slow by slow to get to 140 stores, but talk a little bit more about those decisions that helped you expand the customer conversations that you're having, because like you said, it wasn't just pharmaceuticals, you expanded, and I think the quote, or you guys say it's like, live it up, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, you want people to be able to come into the store and get the convenience of what they need. I'm one of those people. I'll go into her store, I'll buy some gum, I'll buy some, you know, pharmaceuticals, the things that I need, other things. Exactly. So how do you make those strategic decisions to get to where you are now?
All right, so I mentioned earlier that it was strictly a pharmacy. It was just drugs. And then from drugs, people will say, I need to take my medicine now. So water came in. We actually do have our own brand of water. We make our own water now. And that's doing very, very well. From water, skincare. So, you know, this looked good. It was just the beginning of this rave of everyone looking young, not looking their age. Even men, you know, 50 wanted to look 40, 40 wanted to look 30. People were paying more attention. Even if they didn't feel well, they wanted to look good and feel young. So we started with all the, you know, basic skincare, which means for each part of your body, there is something from face wash, shampoo for the hair, deodorants, skin wash, body washes, soaps, body cream, everything you need to use when you wake up in the morning, dental, from, you know, toothpaste, toothbrush, that whole category came almost immediately after. And that did very well. Then it was beauty. Beauty came in later, makeup and, you know, brushes, eyeliner. Then food and drinks. You know, people always, you know, they always want, you know, apart from water, you know, we did all the Red Bulls, you know, healthy drinks. Then we did healthy snacks as well. One big area that really sold was plantain chips. People used to come to us for plantain chips, all kinds of plantain chips. I mean, the margins weren't that high, but I mean, even the staff knew most of the customers by name, and they even knew what you were buying. So one day, one of my friends went into, at the time we had just opened in Palms. I think we were like 4 or 5 years old, and the lady came in, she dashed in, she was coming from ShopRite. She looked in, and she was like, let me leave. And one of my girls said, aren't you buying plantain chips today, ma? She said she couldn't believe it. She was like, wow, what kind of customer service? How did they know? Initially, she was a bit embarrassed, but she stepped back and she cleared the whole plantain chips there. You must know your customer and know what they buy. From that, she picked up body washes. She picked up a lot of other things. So slowly, the categories started to widen. Then people will start to order for things. And then let me really fast forward. When COVID came is when we really understood our business. You know, that it was a convenience business. We could literally sell anything. I told you about eggs, oil. We decided not to do eggs and oil because of, you know, the nature of the goods, that it's perishable and, you know, it just doesn't really fit with the thing. And even though there was a need for some sort of weekly grocery, you know, people wanted things that, you know, they wanted things that they needed on a weekly basis. Now, fruits, and I still would like to do fruits and vegetables because it fits in that whole
Health
nutrition, health space. You know, at the end of the day, again, I have to find somebody, maybe one of you here, that can supply salads every day, fresh, and take account of it yourself, you know. I don't want to worry. I have too much in inventory to worry about. So fruits, vegetables, what else did they want at the time? Like I said, phones, phone cards, everything people need, you know. Brooms, that's something they didn't ask us for. But, you know, we looked at the nature of the product, the perishability of the product, and also the kind of margins that we will make on it. That wasn't a big decision maker at the time because with our pharma, we were always good, but we wanted something that will also draw customers into the pharmacy. And, you know, that's how our range of products grew. Now, in terms of branching, like I said to you, at the time, there was really no other retail pharmacy around. I didn't even know you could branch out like that. But at that time, the wave of shopping malls had just started. And, you know, even though we have 146 stores now, we've actually closed like 8 stores. Because at that time, anything that opened like that, they will come to us first. What we didn't realize was that we had already built equity, you know, even with bankers. So all mall developers needed from us was to get a letter that we were interested. And we didn't know that's what they were taking to the bank. You know, that letter of interest is what they call it. Just give us a letter of interest that you're interested. And we put it in hand then, but then don't worry, we'll come back to you. They'll come back to us like a year later, 6 months later. They would have gotten, you know, huge financing just based on, you know, that kind of thing. So up till now, no serious mall will start without giving us an offer first. In fact, they use our name to attract other clients into the building. One of the things I regret is not really going into real estate early. But I also, you know, I don't regret it too much because you really have to focus. If I did the real estate end at the time, I wouldn't have had time. Even capacity, the money to do real estate. You know, I'd have put all my working capital into the brick and mortar, you know. But if I had done that, I would have owned a few malls by now, you know. So, a point to note.
Yes. So it sounds like the growth was relatively organic, right? You had built such a strong reputation, brand, and business that people were asking you to come, right? Which is, I think, where any founder wants to be. So, but still, getting to that many stores, right? Talk us through some of the core challenges and roadblocks that you've hit along the way in building this business and some of the lessons learned from those experiences.
Okay, so biggest challenge, like with every other business in Nigeria, is talent. So for each store, you need 2 pharmacists, and 2 technicians. That's basic. Now for a store like Lekki, which is 24 hours, you need, Lekki has the most staff. They have almost 50 staff in there, like 10 pharmacists. You know, they run shift basis. So, you know, keeping up with all the pharmacists, getting good pharmacists around was a problem. But the way we solved it was by registering with the schools, and in those schools, giving grants and awards to the best graduating students. So no, we didn't want the highest GPA. That wasn't what we were interested in. We're more interested in people who had the best leadership qualities and people who had improved over time. Because everyone gives the best graduating students scholarships. So we thought to kind of, you know, we would just wanted team players, not necessarily, you know, first-class students. And that kind of solved the problem. So once they graduate, you know, we get a pool of people coming in. So with the shopping malls, I said, you know, shopping malls will come to us. But with time, we realized that the standalones were even a better model for us. With the shopping malls, they're restricted with hours. Yeah, you get a lot of people, foot traffic, they come, but a lot of them are window shopping. They're not actually buyers. At that time, it was a new thing. So people will leave their houses on Sunday afternoon, park all the children into cars, and, you know, it was like a sightseeing kind of thing. So they will look, You get the full fall, but the real actual purchase or basket size, would not convert to anything. So we started looking for standalones. So now we have 3 formats of stores: the shopping mall format, the standalone format, where we actually get a whole building. Sometimes we use it up ourselves, or we also became landlords, like, would sublet to businesses that kind of have a fit with what we do. And then the third model was just tiny stores. We call them neighborhood stores. So anywhere we have a minimum of 5,000, 10,000 people, we just locate a store there. So out of all our 145 stores, we have 18 24-hour stores. So our first 24-hour store was in 1004. So 1004 is a ready-made market. There are 1,004 flats. 1,004 flats with almost 4,000 people, because each flat had a minimum of, family, husband, wife, 2 children, nannies, nannies, drivers, and so it was an instant market for us. We liked that estate kind of model. So we still go into estates now, but we don't like to be inside the estate. So we probably will be at the entrance of an estate so that we can capture the traffic from outside and then inside. So those were the formats. So in terms of challenges, now with pharmacies, you have to be located 200 meters apart. So there was, I think it was on Allen in Ikeja. That was our first casualty. We had no, and sometimes when these shops become available, at that time you are competing with banks. Thank God now banks can open branches, but at that time they were the first movers. They were ready to pay higher. They were ready to pay higher than we'll pay. So between banks and fast foods, we actually really had to be very fast. So sometimes it would just be a picture, a video. I had to learn. I had to learn. So I had to learn how to pick locations without actually being there myself. And after a while, I made a few errors, but I made some very good decisions. Sometimes I would have to even pay for the store before I get the approval from our council. That is the Pharmacist Council of Nigeria. Remember I said we had to be 200 meters apart from each other. But if you don't pay the landlord, somebody else will. Okay. So if you don't pay the landlord, somebody else might take up that space. So speed is of the essence. And there was one location that we had already paid for, and we found out that it did not pass the landlords they don't refund money. So a few, and sometimes there'll even be the location we were closed for was already like a dying pharmacy. But another thing in this environment, people don't like mergers like that. They don't believe in, if they even know it's Medplus, at some point, a lot of these places, we really don't say who we are, because people are like, what are you looking for? We just are one pharmacy. You want to kill us, just leave us alone. No, we're not interested. No acquisition, no merger, nothing like that. So the culture of the environment, is just beginning to change now. At the time, it was very hostile. People would rather own 100% of nothing than 10% of something that's big. But we managed to. We still did a few acquisitions along the way for the ones that really understood. So that 200-meter thing was really a problem. Sometimes you will have a short street, and you will know that street needs more pharmacies, but because of the law, that's been written, I don't know how many years ago, you know, you are kind of shortchanged. That, you know, you cannot get proper pharmacy, access to pharmacy care on the street. So one challenge, so I spoke about talent. And then, you know, with talent, to be honest, I have some very committed, passionate, you know, some of them have left, some of them are even still in Medplus. Individuals that, you know, a lot of them pharmacists that have worked. And sometimes you can't tell. The early part of Medplus, I used to do all the recruiting. And at that time, I'll be looking for someone that will stay long. You know, I'll be looking at you, this one, what kind of plans? Is it going to stay long? We'd spend 5 years, we'd spend 10 years, you know. And Medplus has, I think, we have employees of, you know, 25 years, 10 years. Our retention rate is very good. I'm very proud to say that. And that's also a function of, you know, how you treat people, you know. Even if I say this myself, I'm a big investor in people. You know, what will make me very happy is to see someone come into Medplus, you know, raw, young, and then develop themselves. And, you know, and I have, you know, very good examples of, you know, people like that who didn't even know what they were capable of doing. And, you know, they rose from being a branch manager to area manager to regional manager to head of sales, you know. And, you know, for me, that's really, you know, one of my biggest achievements. So that's the people. And along the line, I've also had people that, you know, I made errors. I didn't think, you know, they would turn out like that. I had people still do deals, all those kinds of things. But, you know, you have to look at the majority of the people. So I think my personality as well kind of made room for me in the business. I give people 100%. I don't have a problem. I think it's a gift from God. I know other people give 0 and they build up. I will give you 100 and then I start to deduct. And I think that's one of my success factors. Because when you actually do trust people and you empower them, they don't want to disappoint you. You know, most people don't want to disappoint. And they will give, you know, they'll give you the very best. They will want to prove a point, you know, and, you know, all of those kinds of things. So I've spoken about talent, I've spoken about regulation. You know, NAFDAC is really the best, the agency that regulates us. We try to really abide by what they say, even though some of what, you know, not all the drugs are NAFDAC registered. And people do need this drug. So they make us pay a huge amount, you know, to create a category for us to be able to bring this, you know, drugs in. I know with medicines, you can only mark up so much, you know, at the end of the day. You know, some medicines are, you know, for terminal diseases and, you know, they're very expensive already for the patients. So, you know, you kind of feel bad, you know, making it more expensive by passing on, you know, some of this costs. So, and then as I was going on, those challenges, I didn't really, I just saw it as, okay, hey, okay, it's there, all right, you know. When we get there, we'll solve it. So with the talent, you know, I've told you how I was able to manage that. With the regulatory, you know, just make sure you abide by the things. And then with the stores, with, you know, looking for the stores and the location, which is the most important thing for us, you know, getting those locations. We had like a little checklist. You know, we're looking for somewhere near schools, hospitals, near housing estates, no, we can't be located near a petrol station. So that never worked. But, you know, we kind of just knew, even without those checklists. After a while, you know, we'll do a video, we'll do a Google thing, we'll all see it, you know. And it's also important for you to surround yourself with, you know, people that kind of share the vision that you have. And, you know, let them feel empowered. You know, today on our management table, I just sit there, I'm the CEO, but I sit there and majority of them, you know, at least a good 70–80% of them can, you know, they know what I would say. Sometimes they even catch things I don't catch. Sometimes they would question some of my decisions. Yes. Like there's a location we have on Akandishola. I don't know if you've seen that location before. Now, there was a pharmacy there before that didn't do well. But that particular location has a lot of visibility. And they were like, oh no, I don't think we should open there. I gave a go ahead. I kind of overrided that. And for me, the share of mind that we get from that store. Because sometimes it's not about what you sell. It's people just seeing you, equity in the brand, and then, just seeing Medplus like a big billboard. Sometimes some of our stores but when it comes to conversion, I was in story. But it's getting better. I think I actually had one that was hell-bent. You can't even discriminate. That's the truth of the matter. I went to Ife. So initially, I looked for graduates from University of Ife. No, Unilag I don't like. Unilag, because I'm sorry, and I have a lot of them. Am I online? Will they hear everything I'm saying?
Not everybody.
Not everybody. Because there are a lot of them. The Unilag people are so affected, very entitled. The ones from UI, out of Lagos, Ife. The farther out you go, the better they are. In fact, there is one particular university. I think they came for me. Because if I saw you on the shop floor, and you told me that was your university, I would almost walk you out of the store. The university is called Madonna University. They are fire. Fire. A little bit cold, a little bit not so rough on the edges, not even the edges rough, big hair, mustache, but those guys, they taught me something new in terms of, they really inspired me. I am serious. If I gave a figure and said, in terms of revenue this week, this is what I want the bottom line to be, and you mustn't pass this, they just say, yes, ma. Yes, ma is what they say, and I'm serious, and I have examples. There are plenty of them. In fact, I need to visit Madonna myself. Wow. I don't know what they do. Whether it's this inferiority complex, whether it's this, I don't know what it is. Those guys are committed. They don't need to, they just want to sell. They just want to offer their service. They don't say no. Do you know what it is not to say no in a pharmacy? So if you come in and we don't have a particular medication, they will find it. If they have to call me, they will do what they do. And I think that really taught me a lesson, not to, discriminate or look down. So now now we don't look at schools, we look at personalities. Sometimes I will even ask you, okay, what's your God-given gift? Because that God-given gift is what I need. It's not your first class from school. It's that thing that's just a natural to you, And sometimes a lot of people don't even know what that gift is, And that's really what we find useful. So with people, you have to pray first. You have to pray. The Holy Spirit, am I allowed to talk about the Holy Spirit? The Holy Spirit has to guide you. And I really use the Holy Spirit a lot in that area. In fact, some of my staff in the early days used to say, madam, once she just sees you, which wasn't true, I didn't even know, that she has to see you. At the time, one of my my friends was opening a pharmacy in Ibadan, and we're helping her out. We gave her everything. We gave her, the computers, the drugs, the list, everything. Then I told her that when it comes to the human capital talent, madam must see, once she sees the person, but it wasn't that, but I always pray before I meet you. And it's not my interviews are never about what you studied in school. It's about you as a person. And depending on what you tell me, it'll be a conversation. And really, I have to be comfortable. And I'll tell you, I've spoken to some very intelligent, smart guys that I ended up not taking. Because somehow my guts wasn't okay with it. And a few times, I think I was right. So it's all about character. If you're able to tell it, most times in half an hour, you can't tell character. So, you have to look for some sort of, I like people that are easy to work with, and then some people fake it a lot too during that time. But somehow, it's been able to work out.
Amazing. So if you didn't get the message on talent and investing in talent in your business, hopefully you've got it. So I have one more question, and then I'm going to go to the group to see if you have questions. So please get them ready. The next question is about, how did you fund this? You have 146 stores in 30 years. So talk a little bit about that funding journey, right? Is it, outside capital? Is it working capital from banks? Just tell us about the journey around how you managed to raise the funding that you needed.
Okay.
Who
So that
supported you on
journey
this
was
journey?
very long. Was a long journey. At the beginning, I told you it was empty boxes on the shelves. It was family funds. Even the banks, I remember I started with GT Bank. And for them, it was just a transactional bank. When you even go and ask for a loan, they will ask you to bring collateral, bring this. I'm like, I'm just starting a business. All I have is my inventory. They didn't like to take inventory as collateral. We had to kind of like prove ourselves. So the initial funding came from, family, source from family, and then some private individuals gave a few, and that's what made it take these 30 years, because really if I had gotten a lot of funding at the beginning, I think would have been able to move faster. Now, while we were building Medplus, I didn't know that investors, like I said to you, I didn't even know they could come and buy shares. I didn't know people bought shares in people's businesses. In pharmacy school, they don't teach you anything about that. I wasn't building the business to sell, but people were watching the business. And from when Medplus was like 10, 15 years, investors had started coming without me knowing. They won't come and tell you they're investors. They'll just come and say, what do you need in your business? What do you need? And, at that time I was very shrewd. I knew I had built something. Yeah. So I'm like, what can you offer me? What are you bringing? Do you know my business? I don't even want to talk to you if you don't know my business more than me. And they'll be like, Mrs. Bakare, how can we know your business more than you? I'm like, so what are you doing here? So I'll send them on errands. So yeah, go and bring me the owner of Boots. Some big owner, the owner of CVS in the US. That's who I want to speak to. And of course, at that time, they're not interested. So with time, it took 5 years before I saw a real need for investors, to be quite honest, because I just didn't see the value they were bringing. At that point, I could get loan from banks, if I wanted. So apart from the loan, what else? You don't know my business. And then you know how it is, they come, and then they want you to regurgitate. You will tell them the whole life. You are the one they will use to understand. And I wasn't ready to start giving out my secrets, my trade secrets or my business. You had to know the business. And having said that, there was a group of young boys at the time, I remember. When they came, they really impressed me. They had done their diligence. They had told me everything about my business. I think they had heard that Ms. Bakare likes you to know a lot. They had told me where I was absent, places I need to expand into. They kind of, they really caught my attention, even though at the end of the day, we didn't do anything. But because, it was a solid business, it had grown, organically, we were very efficient, our housekeeping was good. At this time, we had transited from our one-man accountant, who was also good, Mr. Ikeji. He was with us for like 15, 20 years. We had gotten PwC in, we're paying our taxes, we're doing everything according to the book. At that time, we now had a string. In fact, when I'm in the office, every week, there's some investor coming, from some investor. And, they really used to disturb me. At the time, we didn't, we were using all the cash from our business, and, women, I don't know about men, women are very disciplined when it comes to funds. Everything was going back inside, everything. If at that time, my bank account, I think my salary was like $1 million for a long time, we would kind of, just reinvest, put the money back in. And at some point, we just thought, we can do this a lot faster. Let's even listen to them. And at the time of investment, we had a good parade. We had a good parade. And I'm quite happy. Eventually, it was Vero that invested. We had a lot of multinational companies from France, very interested. They wanted the retail space. And with health, it ticks the retail space. It ticks the health space, wellness, food. You could sell insurance, you could sell phones, you could sell anything. So we had all those kinds of investors, looking at us. But I'm very grateful today that we're with Vera that invested with us, and they've really done well in terms of helping us, with technical growth, with equity, of course, into the business, and then governance, ESG, and all those sorts of things.
Amazing. So would you advise, get ready, would you advise the route you took? Because I think whenever you take in capital too early, it puts a lot of pressure on you and sometimes maybe drives you to a direction that you don't necessarily want to go. So would you advise your path, right? Or would you advise...
I think I waited too long. I waited too long. Maybe I'll do a solid... I know if I say the number of years, I'm old school. You guys will shout, a minimum of 5-10 years. 5-10 years. When you build a business that you believe in, I know people build businesses to sell. I don't like that whole, okay, we're going to sell in. Just build your business. Build your business. And then they'll come looking for you. When my investors came, they didn't even have a choice. I would say, okay, I'm not even doing anymore. They would say, okay, what else do you want? One of them was asking for a part to majority. I'm like, what majority? Which majority? Take that one out first. Then they all went. They had to take that one out. I had a field day because it was a solid business. It wasn't about, everything they were looking for was there. Even social impact. It's healthcare. It takes that access to this, access to that. So I would say a minimum of 5 to 10 years. Yeah. That's one thing I wish I had gotten it. I had understood, earlier than now.
Amazing. So, yes, after that. So, open questions. Who has a question they would like to ask? Madame Bakare. Any questions? Please, go for it.
Wow, I think I have so many questions, but I think I have some, but I won't be selfish. So ask. I wrote some down, but I'll just pick one. So, all right. My name is Elijah, and I'm an entrepreneur. So my question was around. You are basically from your story, you're a typical story of people who investors came for. I don't think you necessarily built for investors, right? So, but what do you think they saw that triggered interest in your business? And I think the Medplus brand is really an exceptional brand, right? I initially thought it was foreign. Yes. Very good branding there. I'm a brand person, so very good branding there. And what I want to know is, at what point did you bring in external, beyond investments, like external thoughts? And was it like a catalyst that really helped your expansion? Because I understand you stay with one location. But what was that catalyst that helped you stand out from other people who started at the same time as you? Was it a way of thinking? Was it something you learned from the Lagos Business School? What was it that really fueled 140 something branches? That's a lot.
Okay. So, all right. And I know there are investors in this room. And I know they diligence the business. First of all, I had fantastic track record. The track record was there. Remember I said, if I always says, how can you run a business this long? What are you doing? I was like virgin. I was like just waiting to be invested in. So at that time, I think we were early 20s. No, investment came 3 years ago. So we're 29 years. Too long. There was track record. I guess 5-10 year track record would work. So that track record was there. Then there was discipline. In Medplus, we didn't have debt. I don't even know how we did it. To be honest, God surrounded me with people that I had a finance team. I didn't like debt. So I think I was attracting those kind of people. So even when I'll say, you know what, this is too tight, I'll tell you how we used to operate. 4 weeks in a month, 1 week, will be for suppliers. The second week will be for vendors, for maintaining the stores, for facility management, for whatever. The third week will be for salary. The fourth week, we were tight, and we wanted to expand. The fourth week will be for expansion. So any money coming, we knew we were allocating capital to the right place. Because when you have too much money again, sometimes you make wrong decisions. A lot of money makes you make wrong decisions, I think. So we're very tight on cash. We didn't have any debt. At that point, after we had, initially they'll say, go and bring this, bring that. And for a startup, I don't know how banks, and that's why I don't think banks haven't really added value in this environment. Because where would I get, I'm just starting the business, I'm just building up something. How do you even expect, if I even have it, won't you ask me where I got the money from? So it was all I had was my inventory, and I thought they should be able to give me something based on that inventory. So the investors, they also look at the founder. They check you out, in and out. They see what you like. They see how you spend money. They'll speak to your employees, So I think, and then they would have done their own sector assessment, in terms of market share, how the business. Don't forget, a lot of these investors are also customers in your business. They all buy medicine. They buy skincare. They buy all of those kinds of things. So I think investors look at, first of all, they look at the health of the company. They look at your procedures, your governance. They look at the governance, then they look at the founder. I think maybe they look at the founder because it's like they're giving you, even though it's the company they're giving the money, you are going to be the one signing the checks. So you have to make sure you have a track record and everybody is watching. You have to set a good example inside your organization. So if you say, whatever you say, they're not listening to what you say. They're listening, they're looking at what you're doing, and you have to be fair. You can't have favorites, if you have favorites, you can't show that you're favorites in the organization. Because if you do the work well, automatically you become a favorite. So that's what investors look at. Now, in terms of, is it expansion you asked me? I told you that customers were asking that, oh my God, I'm always all the way from Port Harcourt. Will I be coming here? And we'll be like, okay, let's do some visibility, So from listening to customers, in fact, there's a Medplus in India. We heard it from customers. Customers now, very sophisticated, do not joke with them. They know a lot. They have plenty of time. They even know about the drugs than we selling the drugs. Because we don't take all the drugs. In fact, some of us don't take any of the drugs. We're just pharmacists. So it's listening to your customer. And don't forget I said shopping malls had just started to develop at the time. So they will come, Medplus, come and open here. We'll be like, where, why, who is going to be there? ShopRite came in, and as soon as ShopRite came in, it was a strategy for us. Anywhere ShopRite went, because we knew they would have done their own demographics and their own, you have to piggy bank some of these big companies. I remember Zenith and GTB used to be my guide. If I was going to like a new city in like Onitsha or anything, I've never been, find out where's Zenith, go and find out where Zenith and GT Bank are first. Now, I know that major road might be expensive. Look for off streets, off those streets and things like that. So that's how we went into branching. And it wasn't like we had a big plan to say, we'll do 10 stores now. It was almost like as the need came, we started to expand. And then later in the business, it was more intentional, more deliberate. There were areas we wanted to be in, like I said, housing estates, near hospitals, near schools, near event centers don't even really work. I know one of the locations we had was in Civic Center. And, that started as a shopping mall. Another lesson for us, in that mall, it's gated. So if a customer wants to come in, they will ask you where you're going to. So that was a bit of a hindrance. People didn't want, people felt there was a bit of sophistication, tension, and, we closed that store. There was another one, the first shopping mall, Mrs. Oyetunji opened that one. What was it called? Oh my God, I forget. It was on Lekki. So, we've, that was doing well, but as soon as Palms opened, we just, we moved over. So the demand came in. The environment.
Organic growth. I mean, there's no better way. Why did you take Appleton? If it was organic.
So expansion was slow. We had, just a little to expand. But if capital had come in, we'd have been able. Now, we open 3-4 stores in a month. Yes, once it's available. We already have all the vendors. In fact, as of now, it's shelving, civil works is ceiling, floor. We can open a store in 3 weeks, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on the state of where we get. If it's a shopping mall, it's faster. If it's a standalone, there is more work to be done.
All right. So my name is Odi. My government name is Odiong Akpan. I help people build and operate businesses. Today, I spend my time with capacity development in the innovation and entrepreneurship space. And my question is related, is around learning, organizational learning, capacity building. I know you are a pharmacist, trained pharmacist, and running a business this big and I'll say complex requires you to upskill. You talked about, having an MBA or going for an MBA at LBS, but of course, with each step you climb, you have different challenges. Perhaps when you were 26 or thereabouts, what you know about running a business or managing people would have been different. So how did you upskill beyond the Lagos Business School thing you told us about? But then the question is also around, you talked about Lumaco. What did you learn from Lumaco, which was a local business, and what did you learn from Boots, CVS, etc., even Walmart? What did you have to learn? How did you learn from them? Did you have to do like study tours? Did you go and observe them because they are good at maybe logistics and inventory management? So my question is, in summary, how were you learning how to be a better pharmacist, dispenser, inventory manager, etc., as you went along the way?
All right, so I traveled a bit, and every journey for me was about learning. I did a lot of role playing. I like to pretend like I'm a patient. So regardless of any country, whether it's in Africa or abroad, my first stop, and when you get into any country, before you drive into your house or hotel, you will see a pharmacy. You will see a pharmacy, or I will note the pharmacy if it's closed or anything like that. So I will go in first to check the variety of what they have in terms of the range of drugs. Okay, what don't we have? That's one. Then two, I will actually act like that customers, the kinds of difficult customers we have. That's what I don't go there as a pharmacist. I go there like a lay person. I don't like to read. I'll be very honest. I don't read too many things. I'm more an audio pictorial person. So I like practical things. I had done a bit of internship in the US, and I know that for people like CVS, when I go, I'll see that my 24-hour model came from the CVS. In fact, now CVS has even stopped 24-hour stores. They closed a lot of them. And as up until last, I think it was early February, when you go into a CVS, everything is locked up. You can't even access, and I'm like, oh my God, this is not going to work in Nigeria. How can I lock, people like, to pick up things and read about it, especially millennials and, this alpha generation and Gen X or whatever, So, and I know that brings us to another area, theft. And for me, my problem is not really customer theft. It's more employee theft. Yeah, it's more of that. We have a few customers, and we know them. There is a Gillette, and we have suspect items. Those suspect items, you have to identify those kinds of things in retail. The Gillette shaving thing, perfumes, I think there are a few items that we know it's always getting stolen. So we manage those kinds of things. So with CVS, when I travel abroad or anywhere, I like to go when it's quiet. So early in the morning, I'll walk around the aisles. I'll have, and they don't stop you, you can, that's how I do my research. I do practical research, I like to listen to videos, and I like to check pharmacies in different countries. I think as up to now, I must have done almost like, I know Brazil, I know Peru, I know even Russia, there's a 36.5. I actually like that name. The name of the pharmacy is 36.5. That's the temperature you have to be at. So, yes, you need that inquisitive nature. You mustn't think you know everything. So even in the LBS, to be quite honest, when I got to LBS, it wasn't so much anything new. I told you, it was all these problems, I wasn't even comfortable. The first year, I was very quiet in class. And then Enase came up to me and said, Joke, did you start Medplus? I'm like, yes. He said, so why are you not talking? I'm like, because I don't understand. I had bankers, insurance, investors. You know how they are? They have their words, verticals, this, that. I mean, they've never put any cover down in the business. So I said, because I don't understand. Half of what they're talking about is not even true, is not right, doesn't really work all the time. And all. So from when we had that conversation, my second year, I gained that confidence. So I could argue any case, whichever way. They teach you that. But I think what it taught me was how to speak up. And I spoke up a lot. In fact, my husband suffered greatly for that speaking up, because I used to be very timid and shy. Went to LBS, I became this voice. It did that for me. 2, time management. I'm always late. In LBS, regardless of whether you're a founder or not, you're late to class, you don't enter. So I like to respect my old self, in class. And people will ask me, okay, what are you doing here? Why did you come here? But I really learned just how to use my brain. Because don't forget, my kids make fun of me when I say I was a science student, linear thinking. There's a certain way we think. We don't think all the way to the end. If you brought a business proposal to me, or if you even came for a job, and you said an amount that I've never heard before, that's it. You're not getting the job. Places like LBS, if you came to me and said, okay, you want $10,000 a month, I'm like, okay, can you make $1 billion? We will negotiate. So it didn't matter what you wanted to say. It's how much, you can make. So I started to think, your reasoning starts to change. The way you analyze things starts to change. I could talk about anything, from politics, to business, to, social reforms or whatever. So that's how, I didn't have any, after LBS, there was no formal training. It was all like, oh yeah, how are they doing it there? How are they doing here? And then even watching your own surrounding, competition, how are they doing? I remember there was a time, Help Plus. I don't know if you guys know about Help Plus. At that time, if we went to a mall, I would go and look for a small store, because all I wanted was presence in that store, because we had other branches. And all the smalls charge in dollars. So I'll come in and say, oh yeah, just give me 60 square meter. But my competition at the time will take 200 square meter. And I'll be like, is it me? Am I the one? I don't need all this space. With that 200 square meter, I can get 4 other stores in different locations. As it turns out, I think that model, kind of worked for us, at that time. So you're asking me, if you're good at reading books, I like magazines. I like things that are picture. I like to go into stores. I like to role play. And then I learn from even my staff. What do you think? And if I can't learn from you, I will not like you. You cannot be saying the same thing I'm saying. You must, we maintain each other. How do you say when I'm a mentor and then mentee? No. No. Maintain. Reverse mentoring. So I mentor you, you mentor me. If I'm only the one mentoring you, it can't work. No, it doesn't work. Somebody has to go. So, so the ideas were fresh. They were forced, to give me, and not anything. I can ask them, okay, which health challenge scares you the most? There is no right or wrong answer. And then we'll debate that. cancer cannot scare you because, at least at the early stages. Hypertension should definitely not scare you. Things like, for me personally, Alzheimer's, that's a big one. Or amnesia, where you don't remember anybody, and they haven't actually found a cure for that. But one of the guys says, excuse me, ma, hypertension is what I find, because in my family, there's a track record. I've seen what it's done. Yes, you're saying, you have all these molecules. Hypertension doesn't kill anybody like that, except you don't take the medicine. The most research has been done on hypertension. So just, learning from anybody, whether it's your cleaner or your maid at home, that's humility. Humility is the name of the game. Don't let me even lie to you. That's the name of my game. And I think that really has worked for me. Not just looking down on anybody or thinking that you can't learn from them. So in terms of upskilling, I think if I remember anything else, and I'm sure there is something else I would like to share, I'll let you know.
Good evening, and thank you so much for sharing your story. It was very inspiring. My name is Shifumi. I'm also a founder. I'm very curious about, does location impact the inventory that you stock in the store? And how do you determine the relationship whenever you want to open a new location? Is it that you have a bunch of inventory, or the location is going to determine that inventory? So I'm thinking about how you make that decision. Do you use any data, any insights?
Okay, so fantastic question. So different stores sell different things. Yeah. Now my stores in Onitsha, Aba, in the east, they don't sell drugs there. It's cosmetics. And the kind of cosmetics, bleaching, it has to be able to make your skin lighter. I don't know whether it's men or women or both. We do a high turnover of cosmetics, skincare, that kind of stuff. So initially when you open stores, you really don't know. Somewhere like Mega Plaza does more men's grooming, condoms, KY jelly. I don't know whether it's because it's hidden inside, or something like that. And you have to learn some of these things as you go along. So the tech is there, all right? We start with a base inventory, and then we start to tailor. We start to create minimum, maximums. And that process is still not foolproof. It's still work in progress. Because if you ask me, one of the big hurdles I still have in Medplus today, it's on OSA, on-shelf availability. Anybody can just, we haven't been able to really mine that information to perfection. Somebody can just walk in and say, give me 12 augmentin. We don't know if they're wholesalers, if they're traveling, if it's COVID, So it's still, we're getting better. We're still not where I want us to be. So yes, location affects. Lekki, our 24-hour store in Lekki, we have all kinds of people. In fact, Shongo Tedo too sells, you'll be surprised. I don't even know about Ozempic, Monjaro, and all those new, and I'm like, who is using, you wonder where are those people from? Who are the people in that, in that area? Yes, location matters a lot, and the kinds of things you have to pay attention. Otherwise, you'll have dead inventory, you carry a lot of stock, and all of those kinds of things. Thank you. Did I answer your question? Okay.
All right. Okay, good evening, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Nelson, and I'm a pharmacist. And every time I hear you speak, Matt, there's always something new to learn, and I'm gleaning from your experiences. Because I have a lot of questions, I would focus just on one and hope that maybe there's a possibility to ask even after now. And just based off of what you've shared in terms of the journey from, say, over 29 years now, building Medplus and all of that, I think I'm very curious as to what does success look like in the future for us in pharmacy, and especially because I'm a pharmacist. I've worked in retail, I've worked in hospital pharmacy. Medplus is like a beacon when you begin to talk about pharmacy that's been done well. So when you've lived that and you've built that kind of business, when you now begin to look into the future, what does success look like for you as you move on now? what would you say are some grounds you need to still break and things you still need to do to get to that point?
Thank you so much, pharmacist. So one of the areas that I am looking to do is private label, having our own brand. I'm tired of selling every other person's products, you know, especially in skincare. In pharma, we have a few lines that we're already working on, but just having our own made in Nigeria, locally made here, manufactured in Nigeria. Now, I don't want to be a manufacturer now because of all the issues, but I think there is something to be said. We already have those channels. It's 146 stores, you know, having our own label, the Medplus label brand of, we have a few now. Like I said, we did water, cotton wools, we have some, but like syrups, things for children, I like those kinds of things, having those, having the private label brand. Then maybe giving back. And we have a foundation. We're doing a bit giving back to communities. In fact, on Monday I was in Ibadan. And we have this association of Nigerian doctors in America. There are a lot of them around now. Nigerian physicians in America, they're here, and they do medical missions. So that's the sort of things I like now, where we give to underserved areas. Because some people can't really afford some medicines, People die because they had malaria that wasn't quickly diagnosed and, just wasn't treated properly. And people shouldn't be dying because of those kinds of things. So awareness on the primary healthcare level. I really would like to do something like that, where every local government health center, I would have like a Medplus in there, not for money, not for profit, whether it's generic drugs, we'll stock in there. It's not going to be free, but it will be something, very nominal, like, just so that people are accountable and people will be compliant with whatever rules that we have set. In terms of what success looks like. No, it's not about me. Just seeing all the, Medplus has 1,400 staff, I have 1,400 staff, and they really do inspire me. Anytime I want to give up, all I have to do is think about them and their families, and just all of them moving on, at some point, maybe owning a franchise of Medplus. I haven't been able to do it now, because it's a bit risky, but I would really like for those people that have been in Medplus to own a part of the brand. I think for me, that's what success will be to me, really.
Good evening. So he asked some of the questions I was going to ask about. Sorry, my name is Chinyere. I'm a founder. My company is building solutions for trade and supply chain. So I was going to ask questions around the impact of FX on your business. I know that in the last 30 years, the exchange rate has been different, and if you're considering manufacturing, so it's good that you've talked about that. So that, I don't know if you want to expand more on that. And then secondly, you talked about your staff, the hiring process, about getting them in. And I actually have friends that work in Medplus. I'm actually talking with one now who recently left, and they always say good things about Medplus, always.
Really?
I know someone that even took a pay cut to join Medplus intentionally, and we want to know how you build that sort of culture where people really want to be a part of your brand. And I think someone said something about it thinking that it was a foreign brand. So I think it's something that just 2 years ago I found out that it was actually by a Nigerian that owned the brand. So how you built that? It sounds very intentional. So I'll just learn more about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're not a perfect company, but we try. Like I said, after you've been in Medplus, you have to have a path. There has to be some sort of path. and I like to identify, and there's some very good talent. I'll give you an example. You remember the Wednesday when the traffic was very bad? I don't know, was anybody caught up in that traffic? The real bad day where people walked home, bridge and whatever. So one of the customers stopped at a Medplus, the one on Bayokuku. They'd been driving for a while. I think he had a headache. No, it was his driver that had a headache. They stopped there. They bought food. When I say food, dry food. They bought drinks. Then I think he bought some medications. And then he needed a charger. And we do carry chargers. And we sell chargers. But that particular store is a new store. It's even barely 6 months old. So my pharmacist there, a young girl, Ore, from Uni Lorry, says to the guy, "Oh, I don't have a charger, but I'll give you, we don't sell chargers, but I'll give you my charger." So he gives the guy the charger. The guy is head of some huge IT company somewhere. So he gives the guy the charger, and the guy says, "Oh, okay, how much should I give you? 10,000, 20,000, whatever." And the girl says, No, I don't want any money. He says, "Okay, so what do you want? Just make sure you always come back to Medplus to buy your medicines." Oh my God. The guy said he wanted to, in fact, I quickly moved her from that store because he wanted to hire her. He just didn't know. He's like, "A pharmacist, where will I put that there?" He said, "Okay, what's going on here? This is fantastic. How did you teach them?" "I did not teach this. In fact, this girl is only 3 months. So, some of them is the culture, but I'll be lying to you because I did not teach her to say that. It's sometimes in the people, the kind of people you attract. Also, don't forget that I told you about this 100% thing. Oh yeah, this 100, go and start. In fact, when we tried to move her out of that store, today somebody sent me a text saying, she said, we wanted to elevate, she said she's not moving from that store. Dictating to me. She said it's a young store, it still needs a lot of, she was making a case. And quite honestly, I can't even really force her to move, you know what I mean? Her in particular. So, we try, we're not even where, by the special grace of God, we'll get to where we want to go. But again, as you expand, before I knew most of my employees by first name basis. I knew the names of the children. Now, there's something else we do. Once every year, we have a staff appreciation day. It's October 1st. That October 1st is my late dad's birthday. So initially, I just, used to have something small. Then I'm like, why don't I just make this, Medplus Day? They all come fully decked out. You would not recognize, I don't even want to recognize, you cannot look the same way you look in the store. Meaning you are made up, you are whatever. At a point we used to buy them clothes, real early in the morning, you come in evening wear from early in the morning. It's a whole day's affair. And I think that kind of bonds all of us together. That is something it does to us. We see each other at our happiest time. And, we have DJs. We even had a Medplus choir one time. Every year is a different thing. So those little kinds of things bonds, people together. Now, in terms of, you said something about manufacturing. I like the prestige of you saying I'm a manufacturer. But that's about it. Because even when I, talk to my mentors, the likes of Emzo, I know it's not just easy. I want to do contract manufacturing for starters. Until there is power. When there is fully power, I will be the first manufacturer. To do manufacturing after power. But until then, the way it is, we're looking at that sector. We have reports, we're doing feasibility. But sometimes you just need to focus. I cannot be a retailer and a manufacturer at the same time. I do not have that capacity. I'll be lying. So don't outsmart yourself or overdo. All right, maybe if I get out of this, it might be a venture, I want to go to in the future. But certainly, I want our own products. I want made in Nigeria products that are as effective and, as also that also works well, that's also branded well, packaged well, to be sold in the Medplus stores. Is there any other question, Did I answer your question?
She answered the brand question, but
okay. So, what you buy is what you sell now. Do you understand what I mean? It's a recession-proof business. How many pharmacists are here? once you, I mean, I hate to say it like that, but we really try what we're doing now. So we have like a 60-40. No, we have a 70-30. So 70 locally sourced and 30. And I'm sure with that, as NAFDAC begins to, we will never have 100%. There's some drugs that will never be made in Nigeria just because of the nature, and how it's made. But, we just want government to be able to, kind of support the manufacturing. Because really, some of these important things are even cheaper than the ones made in Nigeria. I don't know why. Don't even ask me, So, with drugs, there are a lot of new molecules coming out. In fact, I believe someone asked what the future of pharmacy would be like. I think it's going to be food. So with our customers now, we want to be part of that whole healthcare journey, because it's your diet, sleep, and exercise that determines what kind of disease. And these days, they can see disease as far back as 10 years. They can see it coming. There's an avalanche of tests, So in the future, they'll just tell you, eat this in the morning, eat this in the afternoon, Organic food, like I said, fruits and vegetables, more natural, maybe a gym. iFitness is doing a gym, we're partnering with them, whether it's just even walking around half an hour every day. And then sleeping, you have to sleep. There's something sleep does that no medicine can do. So whether you like it or not, and even me saying that, I don't think I'm getting as much sleep as I should be getting. But really, the whole healthcare journey is going to be about things like that.
Amazing. So we got to wrap it up. We've been going for an hour. But there's one burning question, so we'll take it, and then we'll wrap up, and then you can find her if she's willing to stay. How about that? Yeah? Okay.
Why not? What do you think? We're almost there. We're almost there. Inya. We're almost there.
Amazing, amazing. So let's give her one more round of applause, please. So some of the key takeaways, the catalyst was father passing. So how can you channel negative things that happen in your life towards something purposeful? Customer, following the customer so many times. Between customer and talent, that's the business, right? Investing in talent, that is the business. Then the last thing was really around bootstrapping and reinvesting. So one of the, so many key lessons from that, but those are some of the takeaways. If she's willing to stay, feel free and ask more questions. One more round of applause, guys. Thank you.
So one more thing, with those challenges, I said, start writing your struggles down, because you will forget them, I'm telling you. So the second year of Medplus, we had opened in Mega Plaza. And then I think this was either 94 or 95. The entire Mega Plaza got burnt. Who knows where Mega Plaza is? That was the first shopping mall, And actually, Alon has been the best landlord I've had, even though he's not in the business anymore. But he really protects every single business. After I opened there, no other pharmacy. He would not allow any other pharmacy, even though he has spaces. Wow. So the store got burnt. We were waking up at midnight, and I got there, and they kept asking, oh, do you have insurance? Do you have insurance? Now, at the time, I did not have insurance. Because are there any insurance guys here? When the insurance people come, they ask too many questions, too many forms. They want to know the person next door, what do they have, the whole building, what do they have? It was just a cumbersome process. But I learned a big lesson at the time to always insure everything you have. Now, all the Medplus stores, all 146 of them, all insured, against, a lot of things, except COVID, of course, and some acts of nature. So that was a lesson I learned. Now, when that happened, also, your personality, I think I'm also a very patient person. You have to be patient at some time, at some point, You have to persevere. You have to, long staying power. You have to have staying power. I think that really worked for me. Having staying power, endurance, sacrificing sometimes, and just the same resilience everybody's talking about. It's important. Your personality, who you are, must make room. You must take the positives of what you are and use it in your business. I think my personality runs in Medplus, up to a certain thing, up to a certain area. And, I really would like that culture to stay, whether or not I'm in there.
So final, last piece of advice. If there was one thing that somebody should have, could have, would have told you on this journey that you'd like to impart on the people in the room, what is that one thing that you wish somebody should have told you?
So the area I suffer most in is technology. I think in everything else, I'm almost like a Rolls Royce. But in technology, I'm like a Volkswagen, So find that area where you have weakness. Now I have a CTO, things are getting better, but I understand every other part of my business except for the technology part. And I think Medplus has suffered a bit for that, because really it's what you are passionate. Once they know about something, they won't mess with me. But when you don't know about something, some things like, I'll just say, this should be possible. For instance, in the stores, people make inquiries. There's AI and all of those kinds of things. I really would like to use a lot more AI in the business. Not to dispense medicines, but for, giving a price. Yes. One of my young interns came together and said, what, we're always inundated with text messages about prices, and it takes, can we use AI? And as scared as I was, I'm sure there's an opportunity there. Is there anybody in supply chain here? Supply chain, you are? Okay, which part of it? Fantastic. Wow, amazing. That's very good.
Amazing. Let's give her one more round of applause. Find her after. Thank you, Mrs. Bakare, for joining us this evening. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.